Welcome to the Determined People podcast. We are committed to spreading encouragement, strength, and hope to a world in desperate need of it. Everywhere you look in today's culture, you see stories of remarkable people experiencing remarkable success. Our show focuses on the backstories of everyday, relatable people who have achieved greatness in their lives. We focus on the story behind what we see in the world. Our hope is that you find yourself in these stories, that you say, if that person made it, so can I. And now, our host, John Harrell.
Hello, welcome to the show. I'm glad you're here. Ask you to do me a favor, if you would, hit that subscribe button. We're spreading encouragement, strength, and hope into a world that is in desperate need of those things. And I think you'll agree, we are in desperate need of those things in today's culture. Our guest today is a fascinating young woman named Patricia Simon. Patricia found herself years ago in the middle of an identity crisis as an adult. And identity crises are pretty much universal with people. They don't know who they are. They're trying to find out, and we'll try to fill those holes with stuff or position or power or a better zip code or something. She actually not only went and found her true self, her true identity, she wrote about it, and then she also gave us a guide, a workbook, if you will, which is a way to help you journal through things. It will help you in your life. So we're going to get into that. So again, thank you for being here. Patricia, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on.
I'm happy to be here.
I'm happy to be anywhere. So the book is called My Fight Club Within. This is actually the workbook. It's a great title. How did you come up with the title?
From just battling with myself for years and years and just numbing to the fact that I was, fighting with myself and just being disappointed all the time with others when I was really disappointed in myself. So I felt like everything was inside me was covered with all these layers of years of, covering up, things that I didn't deal with and just numb myself and just would forgive and forget, with the forgiveness being like that thing that brought me to realizing and becoming aware of, knowing that I had to write this book.
Mm-hmm. Why did you write the book? I mean, because a lot of people will do self-work, but they're a little reticent to share their internal battles and how they overcame those battles with the public. Writers can be insecure. Almost to a person, every writer I've met has some insecurities about putting their work out there. You're pretty much bearing your soul in this book. Why did you write that?
I had to get it out of me. I had to be real for the first time because I was so covered with everybody and everything else in my surroundings. And I was just lost inside. And I felt like I was smothering. I was suffocating. And I had to breathe this out because I really didn't write it. I spoke it. And I spoke it on a beach. And it didn't turn out like it was supposed to be a book, right? It was just, I was just talking my feelings, like in my phone and Siri. And then I'd copy and paste. And then everything just falls into place as I walk you through the book.
And you walked us through it. You walked us through it. But you encourage the writer to follow 3 steps. Awareness, if I feel. Then action, I can heal. Then allow and be real. Be your true identity, who you really are. Because oftentimes we, in this world, look at other people and we see somebody and we start thinking we know them because they look like they have it all together and they live in the right zip code and drive the right car and their kids are perfect and they're all put together perfectly. But oftentimes people are falling apart inside. Is that where you were?
Yes. And I was just trying to keep it together on the outside for everybody else, where I just lost myself. So I really got to know myself.
That's a scary proposition sometimes because we don't always know what we're going to find. The mind is very good at having coping mechanisms so that we can get through some very difficult periods. I know I certainly had them myself growing up in a chaotic, oftentimes violent home. Right. But those coping mechanisms don't serve us well going forward into adulthood and beyond. At some point, I always say the day of reckoning comes. You can either face it or you can run from it. And you chose to face it, and you faced it bravely in a lot of ways. I had bought the audiobook, and you reveal in the book early on that you're dyslexic, but you read the book yourself. That takes a lot of bravery to do that.
Right.
But it was you have a great voice for the audiobook, but it was soothing, but it made it better because you're telling your own story in your own words with your voice. But there's a couple of examples. You tamp down a lot of emotions as a child. You talk about crying when little Patty was dropped off by her mom back at her dad's, and your dad commanded you to stop crying. You'll see her in a week. And you're dyslexic, something your father forced you to hide. I mean, Patricia, that's a lot to carry into adulthood. That's a big burden to carry. I guess what got you? You said you're smothering yourself. What got you to that point to finally decide, I'm going to be different. I'm going to break through this and deal with my past. We'll talk about forgiveness in a bit, but also deal with who I really am and go face that, not knowing what the outcome might be. What got you to that point?
Well, it was just, just being beaten down so hard by, all these people that you think love you and care about you, and that's what I thought love was. So I was loving myself that way, which wasn't,
Healthy.
Yeah, exactly. So awareness, I had to be aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
I had to know that, hey, this isn't cool, and instead of like being this little shy girl, put my head down and going, okay, Daddy, I forgive you, till the next time, so there's no next times with me now.
Yeah. Tell us about your mom.
My mom wasn't there. She, she was only there on Sundays. Mm-hmm. And, so I had to, she would give me anything I wanted, because she was dealing with her shame and guilt from losing me because mm-hmm. she left when I was 5 mm-hmm. and abandoned me. Mm-hmm. So my dad took over, and he went to court, and he got, custody of me, and he was my ruler, he was like, okay, in charge. But I did feel safe, I felt safe with my dad. But with my mom, no. I just...
Okay, let's go back and define safety. You felt physically safe, but did you feel safe with your emotions?
No, I just felt safe with I was sheltered because he was so strict. I mean, I couldn't do anything, he caught me wearing nail polish once, and I had to actually bite it off. He made me bite it off. I couldn't use paint remover. So to this day, I don't wear it. No, but I have I do. Anyway, but and my mom, she didn't, there wasn't any rules. I mean, when I was over there, when I was like 16 years old, she just gave me a blank check and said, oh, just go buy me, pick out a bar, to put in the living room or whatever to serve alcohol. And she was just the complete opposite. There wasn't any alcohol in my house at my dad's, but at my mom's, it was an open bar. So
you'd written in the book that your mom was an alcoholic, and being the adult child of an alcoholic has its own sets of implications, which we'll talk about. But you also wrote that you spent your life, part of your awareness was you realized you're taking care of everybody.
Exactly.
Your husband, your parents, your friends, your kids, but you hadn't taken care of Patricia.
Exactly, yeah.
And you wrote about falling in love with yourself. And how do you do that when you've always been focused on everybody, which is, by the way, noble, but that is also a very discernible trait in children of alcoholics. They take care of everybody else because that's what they feel like they need to do. You're trying to create normalcy out of chaos.
Exactly, yeah. How did I do that? Well, afterwards, and it's only been probably, the last 2 years, I give myself all my time and energy. Like as soon as my feet hit the floor, I'm grateful that, for everything I have. And I take care of myself. I work out. I do Tai Chi, which, I balance myself. I watch the sun come up. I sun gaze. I put myself first, where I never did that before. It was always like, oh, I got to do this for so-and-so. I got to go here for them, or I got to, but I don't let anybody have my morning time. It's just me and within myself and, what needs to, what I need to nurture myself. Because I know I'm the only one that can do that. Nobody else can do that for me. And I was waiting my whole life for somebody to just take over. And, I love being controlled. I love being, Patsy do this. Okay, Patsy do that. And I was like, okay, it was so easy for me. So now I do it for myself. So it's a big difference, when you...
Making a change like that, though, can give you a lot of feelings of discomfort. Oftentimes people go back to the old ways. How long do you think it took you to get to where you felt comfortable taking care of yourself first, putting yourself, not selfishly, but putting yourself and your own needs first? How long did it take for you to get rid of that discomfort?
When I started giving boundaries, having my line, I draw my line with myself, because I knew what I liked, and how it was so much easier. And it was like, oh yeah, I'll just wait for my coffee, I get up and make it myself. So when I drew that line, as I was doing it with everybody else too, I was learning how to say no. No, it's a good word for me. No.
I've never heard somebody talk about setting a boundary with themselves. Yeah, that's fascinating, actually. Let's talk about forgiveness. I grew up in a dysfunctional family, and those require a lot of forgiveness. What does forgiveness look like for you in the beginning, and how did you get to where you were able to forgive your parents and also yourself?
Well, again, it was my strict dad. I was raised, in this religious, home where I was in church every day. I mean, my grandfather built the church, and my dad was so strict. And going to confession, I'd tell the priest my sins, and then I'd be taught by the nuns. And
how much sin could a 6-year-old have?
I had a lot going on, man. I spent a lot of time in that, talking to the priest, and had to say a lot of Hail Marys and.
She should have taken a sack lunch in there with you or something.
Yeah, but it wasn't really, to me, it was horrible. It was horrifying, which wasn't really horrifying probably to you or to other people, with what I was doing, because I was always in trouble. I couldn't do anything right, with, like I said, in school, with the nuns, I didn't pay attention. I had a hard time, I didn't want to pay attention because it wasn't, I didn't feel it was healthy for me to learn these things. I really didn't. And so I'm kind of glad I didn't, because now I'm, for the first time, especially since I wrote my book, I'm like, it's a whole new world for me, because I'm learning so much that I didn't learn then, because it wasn't really what I needed. And so now I'm giving myself what I need. So, and that's the forgiveness for me. It's, I've had to forgive myself with just, every time, like my past relationship, that I talk about in the book with the Aussie. I'd gone all the way over to Australia. I'm 8,000 miles away from home, and I knew after I got there, that's when it started coming out to me, like, it was wrong. It wasn't, it wasn't. So I had to forgive myself for being in that situation, because I felt like I was stuck again. I was just, not thinking of myself or taking care of myself, and putting the other person, his needs ahead of mine, like I always did. So the switch went off for me then, I think, when I came back. And then that's how I kind of moved to the beach. And I walked the beach, and I didn't know anybody, and I just started pouring my heart out on my phone, and just spoke my book out, and step by step. And so I go through all the processes of like what forgiveness meant, and like with my dad, it would be so bad with what he would, he hung me up actually on a wall once by my neck, and was going to kill me. He was so mad at me because a boy called my house, and I was 12 years old. or 11. And, I forgave him back then, because of his heart. It was pure, really, even though he knew it was wrong, and he kept saying, "I'm so sorry. I love you so much." He was crying his eyes out. And so I was still doing that, just a couple of years ago with this Aussie. He has me all the way over there in Australia, buys me this ticket. And then it's like, oh my gosh, who am I with? He is a different man. And then he's writing me this 5-page letter, and saying how sorry he is and blah, 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 why I'm there. And I didn't read that until maybe a year ago. I couldn't read it. And that's when I meant I quit saying it was enough. It was enough for me. I just had to say, no more. I have to forgive myself for allowing this all these years. And to know, if it's genuine, to draw the line and say, okay, all right, I do forgive you, but I'm moving on. I'm not going to come back for this punishment anymore, Sure. I'm not going to stay another day in this 20-year marriage. I'm not going to stay another day in this, year-and-a-half relationship. I just, enough was enough. I had eaten my last turd.
One of your friends said that to you.
Yeah, my cousin Gail. She said, "Patsy, when's enough enough? When are you going to have eaten your last turd? When's enough?" And I was saying, yeah, that was it.
It's probably an awakening moment.
It was. It was, yeah.
She might have delivered that one with a little bit of gentleness and self-control and said it a little bit differently, but
Yeah.
whatever it was. And speaking of gentleness and self-control, you have chapters written about the fruit of the Spirit from Galatians. Love,
Yes.
joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Is that what you spoke into the phone?
That was observing for the first time with my awareness, my fruit. That I wasn't some dead fruit laying around. I was so vibrant, and I was so full of so many things that I was keeping inside me and like almost feeling bad for having them. And I thought, why am I like this? What's wrong with me? So, yeah. So that's how you can tell another person, and it's by fruits. And so I thought it's so important because we have to have, growth in order to have growth, to feel what we're feeling. We have to go through the bad poison stuff around that's growing in the roots, which I was slowly digging down inside me because I was so covered with years and years of all this stuff that was in my head, that I couldn't pay attention to when I needed to for me, for what I needed to do to get to this point of, self-awareness and forgiveness and, feeling, and then I could heal. Then I could start, and it got worse. I mean, it was awful, as it gets on pouring you through. I think I cried through most of my audio. I was kind of teary-eyed the whole time, but yeah.
But it was great, and I didn't detect that. I could feel the emotion.
Some parts,
though.
Yeah. But I mean, no, I laugh a lot too, because that's the joy of like being able to laugh at myself and just say, hey, you're okay, you're getting through this, girl.
I give myself a lot to laugh with, so I'm completely in touch with that.
Yeah.
So do you have a favorite chapter or two?
Ooh. Yeah, I like the ending. Because it's not ended, I'm still working on it.
Sure.
So, yeah, I guess my love chapter. I like my love chapter the best. Because that was so, that's how it brought me to where I am now,
Before we get into the chapter called Secrets, tell us about Bali Belly.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I had been in Bali, and I was, we would go out and we would kind of sightsee, and I was on the back of a bike, and I don't know if anybody's ever experienced being on the back of a bike in Bali. It's pretty crazy because you have these little alleyways, and there's like a quadrillion little people on bikes, and they're all coming up, and it's just chaos. But you're So, but I was up in the hills, and I put on this little black dress, and I was going to go have a Mai Tai, at this really special place, beautiful place. It was huge, and just people watch, And so I get there, and I'm having, taking a couple drinks, and then all of a sudden I'm like feeling something like, and so I had to go to the bathroom, which was, oh my gosh, it took me like probably 4 minutes to get there, because it was through this huge place, down steps, down little hallways, beautiful little people eating areas, and then I get to I'd go to the bathroom, and then I was okay, and then I'd come back up, and I'd be like 5 minutes later, have to do it all over again. And so after about 7 trips, I was like, oh my gosh, I said, we better go. I'm not not stomaching this. This is. So I get on the back of the bike, and thank God I have my hair in a ponytail, but so my Aussie puts my helmet on, and he straps it on tightly, and I'm on the back of the bike, and he said, okay, tap me on the shoulder, if I need to pull over, So here I am, but this time it was coming up through here, through my mouth, it wasn't coming out the other end. So I was like, I'm tapping him on the shoulder, because there's this lovely bridge, right? And all I could picture was me hanging my head over the bridge, But so I'm tapping him, and he keeps going. And I'm like, oh my gosh, and he's like, at the end of the bridge, there's this beautiful restaurant, and it's like a 5-star. People are in evening gowns and tuxedos, and they're like out there with, it's amazing. And he pulls up in front, and I couldn't even get, as soon as he snapped off the helmet, I was like, blah, and it came all over the place in front of all these people. And I just stood there, and I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, so he goes in and gets this ice bucket, from the concierge or whatever, from the person that's seating us, and and he's trying to clean up the stuff off my.
You went ahead and went into the restaurant after that.
He's thinking, well, no, I didn't step foot anywhere. I stayed out there in that parking lot. I was just there, and because I had it on my helmet, and we're trying to. But thank God, and I'm like so glad I wore my hair back in a ponytail, because, woo, So. Yeah, so he thought, I needed the bathroom, but I needed the bridge. So there's my belly story.
Oh my gosh, It's not a very good appetite. It's not good for the appetite to see somebody puking out in front of your restaurant.
Especially, and people dressed up so lovely and stuff, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed.
One more funny story. You bought a vibrator.
Oh no.
But you never used it. What did you do with it?
I tried to return it because I had the receipt still in the box. I never opened it. And I didn't even think about it. I didn't even know where one of these stores was. I'm trying to remember. So I take it in there, and the person just looks at me and go, we're sorry, we can't take this back. And I go, well, why? I never used it. And they go, but I know, but it's still. Yeah. And so what I did with it was I went back, to my place, and, the garbage chute that's inside, I took that, in the box and bag and everything with the receipt, I don't know, it was $100 and some too. It wasn't cheap. And I just threw it down the garbage chute. And that's what I did with that, okay?
You could have had some fun. You could have taken it to a pawn shop or something. See if they would have given you.
No, it's just like, that's just the way my brain works. I mean, I'm just like, okay, this is new, I'm just trying to... Yeah.
I couldn't wait for this question. Chapter 11 is titled Secrets. And in that chapter, you reveal your deepest secret, which you had not even told your children. And I'm not going to reveal it here. People need to buy the book to read it. How did you feel telling the world about that?
Well, first off, if you just go to get my book, please don't just go to that chapter, because of my dyslexia. You have to start from the beginning, as you can tell through my book, because I walk you through it, because then you'd be way off. You'd be like, oh my goodness. But it's just other things that I was doing to myself, to hold that secret in that I didn't, I just couldn't reveal it. I couldn't do it, except, with how I was hurting myself. I talk about, and I didn't go into depth with it, but talk about being a cutter, all the surgeries I shouldn't have had, that I didn't need, like getting breast implants. I was already a D. I didn't need them, but I got them removed, and I did other things to myself with cutting and I didn't cut myself, but I did it at the hands of surgeons. So I was just out to just cut myself all up. And
simply numbing the pain is what you're doing.
Yeah, but in a way that was almost I can't describe it, but it was like to take away from my outside, from my flesh. And it kind of started when I was even, before. I was probably like 6 years old or 7. And, my parents, like I was living with my dad, when I actually took a pencil, and chewed off the top of it, and I just scratched my face up brutally. And I was like, my parents, why'd you do that? And I go, I don't know. So that's kind of like giving you a glimpse, because I don't go into detail about how I hurt myself, but that was me again, just trying to numb myself and cover this up and not, heal. I wasn't able to heal. I was so wounded, and I was, like we said earlier, I was just trying to put my grief off on everybody else and helping them take care of their wounds, and just not working on my own,
sure.
Not getting through
It's noble to take care of other people.
It is. Mm-hmm.
But not sacrificing yourself, not looking at yourself and what do you need. And that's what you did for until you didn't. You did that
until I stopped doing it, yeah. And
yeah.
so, and I watched a lot of my friends in that too, or people that I know, suffering from the same stuff that they keep doing over and over to themselves, like when I was doing my stuff, Mm-hmm. And they keep saying, I want to stop. I'm going to stop doing this. I'm going to lose this weight, or I'm going to, I'm going to stop drinking, or I'm going to do. Mm-hmm. And they just, I just see them as they're, buttering their bread up or something, or taking their next bite, sure. That they're still trapped in that. And so with me, I was still in that cycle, with with taking care of or worrying, and I'm still like that. I still care about all these people. I still want to help them, and that's why I have these books, because I'm like, if you just read my book or kind of just go through the exercises, you don't have to go through it anymore. So learning from your mistakes, and that was key for me. So I wanted to stop doing the same stuff. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I have this routine that my mornings are for me. And it's not being more selfish or something. I mean, my daughter calls and wants me to watch Luke, my grandbaby or something. I'm there, I'm there, mm-hmm. still. But I still, I'm still up at 5 a.m. and I'll still do my thing before I'm there for them, because that's the only way I can be there for them. Mm-hmm. Because if I didn't take care of myself, I'd be, I don't know where. I'd be in a wheelchair or something. I don't know.
There's an old saying in Al-Anon, which is, take care of yourself, because if you don't take care of yourself first, you're not going to be good for anybody else.
Exactly.
And it's so true. It's so true. But you're actually doing it. Whereas a lot of people may do it is in name only, but everybody's got to get there on their own time. Mm-hmm. But the workbook is great because you've got places to journal in here. What part was your adult ego playing in the fight? What part was your spirit playing in the fight? Just this great stuff that people can just go through here, and you go through in chapter 4 in the workbook, the fruit of the Spirit. Okay, mm-hmm. Foundation. First of all, love. You must first love yourself. Doing so will bring about the healthy results you want. Mm-hmm. Start there. Self-work's hard. If it was easy, everybody would do it.
Exactly.
But it's hard to make those changes. Mm-hmm. At the same time, you just got to have the purpose within and find it and then go do it, because you may be slapping a bunch of butter on a piece of bread and stuffing it in and maybe doing 2 or 3 of those, rationally knowing this is not good for me, mm-hmm. but it's the emotional, and that's what you've got to go fix, and that's what you did. But it's not finished. It's a lifelong quest.
It's a process.
Sure,
yeah.
Of course it is.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad you wrote the book. It's excellent. But you're right, a good point. Don't just go to Secrets and read that. Read everything up that builds up to it, so you know who Patricia is when you get to that point, to reveal things about yourself. And even the dyslexia was something you had hidden for years. Did your teachers ever know you were dyslexic?
No, because it was, when I was diagnosed, I was like 10 or 11, and I was in this private school, and my dad, we went to Washington D.C. and I saw this special doctor, mm-hmm. and I did all these tests and that. And when he said, your daughter's, she's different, he said, but he didn't say it in a negative way. I didn't feel that way. But my dad looked at him and he said, thank you. And he just took my hand and we walked out. And then we got in the car and he said, there's nothing wrong with you, Patsy. I never want you to repeat this again, ever. So what this doctor said to you, you're going to go to school and you're going to learn like everybody else. And I did. I listened to him. And I'm kind of glad I did, but oh my God, it was hard work, because, when it takes me like, you 5 minutes to do, it takes me like 15 minutes to do because I have to work all around it because I always have this big picture in my head that's constantly going. And it's like, wow, there's no way to sort it out. So I have to go through the trouble of sorting it out, and that probably takes an extra 5 minutes. And then when I get to it, then I have to focus on that part. So it's just...
Well, I sort of got a glimpse of what it looks like through a dyslexic's eyes when I asked you, what does a menu look like to you?
Yeah.
You explain, sometimes I make my own dishes up.
I do. I do. My kids would just be so embarrassed about it. And then they just said, oh, Mom's just going to, she's going to create something on that menu. And I do. I can't help it because I can't read it thoroughly through. I just look at it and I know what I want. And that's the whole picture. I think that's the bottom line. I know what I want now. I didn't know what I wanted before, before I wrote this book. I know exactly what I want, and that's what I concentrate on, and I don't take what you want or, so-and-so wants.
Sure.
I deal with my wants.
Yeah. In a healthy way.
Yeah,
But that
exactly.
is healthy.
Yeah.
It is healthy. You do have to put yourself first. That way you can serve others, and that's what you're doing. What do you struggle with today?
You don't want me to answer that. Not actually. I just, just keeping myself, in the moment. Not thinking about what happened yesterday, or, But like I said, learning what happened, and just I'm feeling like I'm really doing a good job of learning from my mistakes, but I'm learning from other people's mistakes too. You know what I mean? So it helps me too. With listening and not being so closed-minded, when somebody's talking to me about something that they're dealing with, and just thinking, oh wow, that's not a serious. I do look at it like everybody is if they're valuable too, their meaning of what they're going through is just as valuable as what I'm going through. So that's what I'm kind of like, just loving on myself and others, and walking in that love and forgiveness, and just trying to get my fruit to grow, more and more, with keeping it alive, and helping others keep theirs alive with me.
But you mentioned learning from others, and that requires listening.
Exactly.
Which listening is an art form. A lot of people hear, but they don't listen. If you rearrange the letters in the word listen, you get silent.
Right.
I don't think that's by coincidence. I really don't. And speaking of learning through others, I have these conversations with God often saying, I can learn everything I need to learn about character development from library books. I'm a reader. I will read. He doesn't listen. I got to put you through this shit, John. You'll learn. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
that's true. That's very true.
The book is wonderful, and it is something that a lot of people struggle with. I have 100+ conversations a week with people, and I can see it because I sense it, that people struggle with their own identity. Their identity gets caught up in things that really aren't that important. It's not who they are. Because we're not human havings, we're human beings, we're spirit.
Right.
And so the fact that you took and made the effort to actually write it down and then give people a guidebook to work through it for themselves is remarkable, and I'm glad you did. I want to read one of the many reviews that you have on the book. This comes from a girl named Lindsay. This book hits home. I feel like I know the author as I'm reading this book. I concur with that. As I was listening to the audiobook, I felt like I know this young lady. I felt like I really knew you. Through the highs and the lows, standing up for yourself and self-love go hand in hand. I could relate to a lot in this book. Coming out of a narcissistic relationship, I feel stronger now than ever, as I overcame the hardest obstacles of my life, learning to love myself. So,
wow.
Another of the many 5-star reviews, and it's wonderful. One last question. How do you want to be remembered?
Ooh. Oh, wow, that's deep. I just want to be remembered as somebody that was real. I critically think for myself now, and I never used to, but that's made a big difference. And so, and for, if I can do this, anybody can, because a lot of people say, oh, you wrote a book and you have dyslexia and I don't even read. So how did you do that? And sure. I go, if I can do that, anybody can. Sure. And it's just opening up, and your heart and, just letting it flow out. What's, all these fruits of the Spirit can come alive and grow.
Absolutely. And the theme of the podcast is encouragement, strength, and hope. And I hope that people find themselves in these stories and say, gosh, if Patricia did it with dyslexia and her background, maybe I can too. Picking themselves up. So thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, John.
And for the book. It's wonderful. So
thank you.
I know you're working on a third book, and we'll have you back on when the third book is out. So the pressure's on. All right. Thank you, Patricia.
Thank you.
And that concludes our show. Thank you for being here again. We really appreciate it. And again, spread this with your friends, your family, people you don't like even, okay? Torture them with the interviews, because we are spreading encouragement, strength, and hope. I'll be back tomorrow on the audio broadcast with my daily 1-minute message of inspiration. Until then, everyone, be well.